Some of you guys, okay. Ariel, what's that mean? Absolute value, or what is it? When you think of absolute value, what do you think of? Shannon?
Distance from zero.
Good, distance from zero. Okay, that's one thing, okay. What else, when you think of absolute value, what does it look like? Anybody remember what the absolute value looks like? Antonio? 1 second, he's got a mouthful.
Okay.
Or you can just show me.
I draw it.
Go ahead, yeah, you can draw it.
Stop being in class.
Oh,
That's not, I don't want that.
sorry.
No, that.
There you go.
Like -9, that actually
Okay.
equals 9.
Okay, good. So thanks Antonio. So that's what absolute value looks like. All right, it has the bars inside. So today we're going to solve absolute value equations with. We're going to solve absolute value equations. Let me give you guys the notes for today.
Can I pass it out?
Jody, pass it up. I think it was Shannon that said absolute value, all right, it's going to measure the distance a number is from zero. So on that top part of your notes where it says absolute value measures, you're going to write distance from zero. That's what absolute value measures, distance from zero.
Which one?
On the first bullet where it says absolute value measures, you're going to write in distance, what I highlighted. You don't have to write a distance, you don't have to write a number is, just write distance from zero. That's all you have to write. That's what absolute value measures. So like Antonio's example was -9. The absolute value of -9, like Antonio showed us on the board, is 9. If I did a number line, is my number line, right? When I measure from 0 to -9, I go 9 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm 9 spots away. That's why any absolute value of a negative number, that's why it's positive, because you're measuring distance. You never measure distance in negative numbers. Distance is never negative. Even like if you drive like down to Florida, even though you're driving down or south, it doesn't mean you're driving a negative amount of miles. Even if I walked backwards all around this room,
Oh, sure.
I'm still gaining distance. All right, so that's why absolute value, we never measure distance in zero and negative. All right, it's always positive. That's why it works this way. It's the distance a number is from zero. All right, so the absolute value of -9 is 9. Even if it's a negative number, it's still a positive distance away from zero. All right. Now, when we're talking about equalities, it's a equality that contains absolute value. It's called an absolute value equation. All right, so we're talking equations now like we solved before. It's going to have a variable. It's going to have an equal sign. You're going to have to solve for something. All right. So it always, when we do these, it's always going to have 0, 1, or 2 solutions, depending on what we're doing. All right? Let's look at the next page. So on your notes, you have to solve an absolute value equation. So now we're going to write down those steps. So you have the word ensure on your notes. You're going to write down the absolute value expression is by itself on one side of the equal sign. So on one side of the equal sign, it's just going to be the bars only and the stuff inside of it. There can be nothing else attached to it. It can't be the absolute value plus a number. You won't be able to solve it then. Then we're going to have to take some steps to get that absolute value by itself. Think of absolute value almost like one big X. It's like one big variable you want to get by itself before you can solve it. So that right there, that's an example of an absolute value being by itself on one side of an equal sign. There's nothing else outside of it, all right? Nothing else attached to it. I'd be able to go ahead and take the steps to solve that, to get my answers. So we're going to make sure the absolute value expression, it's like one big variable. Think of the stuff inside as like one big letter. That one big letter has to be by itself before you can solve it. All right? Let's go down. Everybody go with, you'll still be able to see most of it if I go down. I think everybody's got the first couple sentences there. Next. Now, on your sheet, you have an if. The first bullet that says if. So, if there's a number attached to the absolute value bars, divide both sides of the equal sign by that number. So if you have a number attached to it, here's your example. 3 absolute value 2x plus 5 equals 6. Right? So now the problem is we have something attached to the absolute value. It's not by itself on that side of the equal sign. So we can't go ahead and solve it yet. We're not at that point. So I'll give you guys about 10-15 seconds to get the rest of that written down before I ask you guys how we're going to solve this. So, for this one, someone tell me what's wrong with this by raising their hand. What's wrong with this? Shannon, what's wrong with it?
There's a number attached to the absolute.
Yeah, there's a number attached to the absolute value. What's that number? 3. There's a 3 attached to the absolute value. It's not by itself, so I can't go ahead and solve it. I got to get the absolute value by itself first. Ariel, what do the directions say to do? So I have a number attached to the absolute value. What does it say?
To the absolute value, divide both sides of
Both sides of the equal sign.
by that number.
So what do I have to do?
So divide 3.
Divide by 3 on both sides. That'll get rid of it here. I'm divide by 3 over here. That doesn't get rid of the absolute value bars. It only gets rid of the number that's with it. So now I'm going to get absolute value 2x plus 5 equals 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Remember, we talked about that at the beginning of a couple weeks ago. Now all it is a fraction is just a division problem. All right, always check to see if the bigger number can go into the smaller number. If it can, you're in good shape. So guys, we're not going to solve this one. I just wanted to show you what you had to do if you had a number attached to the absolute value. That's one situation you might have before you're able to solve and get your answers. All right? Another if that you might have. This is a little bit longer. So if there's a number attached to the absolute value, like we had in the first example, and another number. So now we got, like in this example, we got the 6 attached to it, but we also got this minus 14 and this negative 14. So we'll do the opposite operation on both sides first. All right, we want to get rid of this first, and then we're going to do our division.
Wait, do you want us to write this down?
Write this down, yeah. Right on the second bullet, on the second if bullet, you're gonna write this. If there's a number attached to the absolute value bars and another number. So here's the number attached. Here's your other number. We're gonna do the opposite operation on both sides. Then we'll divide by the number that's attached. So we'll do the opposite operation. We'll do the opposite operation on both sides first. Then we'll divide by the number attached. So this is one extra piece. And the one we did in the first example, we only had the number attached. On this, we had 2 things on the side with the absolute value. We had the number attached, and we also had another number. So, for this one, someone tell me by raising their hand. What do you think we want to do first? What do you think we want to do first? Anybody think they want to take a shot at it? Liam? Careful. It says do the opposite operation on both sides of the sign. Then we'll divide by the number attached. So you're on the right track. We're not at that point yet. We're going to divide by that 6 at some point, just not right now. So what's our only other option? So rather than dividing by the 6, what's the only other option we have on that side? Emily?
Add the 14 on both sides.
Add the 14 on both sides. Good. Again, that's not going to get rid of my absolute value. Right? It's just going to get it by itself so I can get to the point where I want to solve. A minus 7 equals 24. All right, I know Mr. Hager explains this. If you have two things on the same side of the absolute value, get rid of the thing that's further away first. See how the 14 is a little bit further away from the absolute value than the 6. The 6 is right up against it. Get rid of the thing that's further away from the absolute value first, then you can get rid of the thing that's closer. So this is like just what we had for the first example. Now what do I want to do? Someone tell me by raising their hand. What do I want to do now? So now I just have the number attached. Brett?
Divide by 6.
Divide by 6. That's going to get the absolute value by itself. Divide by 6. Divide by 6. It doesn't get rid of the bars. It just gets the absolute value by itself so you can solve. So I'm going to get absolute value, A minus 7 equals 4. That had 2 steps. Move the thing that's further away from the absolute value first to the other side, and then you can divide by the thing that's closer to the absolute value, then you'll get it by itself. Again, 2 situations you might have before you can get the absolute value by itself, right? Before you can solve it. Now we're at the point, if you get an absolute value that looks like this, if that's your first step, great. You don't have to move anything. You don't have to add. You don't have to divide or add or subtract. You're ready to do the part we're going to do now. So some of them you might be like this, all set to go. Some of them you might have to divide. Some you might have to divide or subtract or divide and add. All right? So this is as basic as it gets. This right here, the example we just did, that's probably as hard as it gets because you're going to move 2 things before you can solve. All right? Now, we're on that second step. We're going to eliminate. So right where it says eliminate, under the example you just did, we're going to write eliminate you can abbreviate to like Mr. Hager I did here in the notes. Eliminate absolute value bars by splitting the original equation into 2 equations. If you want to write, but not until the absolute value bars are by themselves, you can do that. Right? The absolute value bars have to be by themselves. There could be nothing else outside of them on that side of the equal sign before you can solve them. Before you can get to this step, they have to be by themselves before you can do what we're going to do now. So eliminate the absolute value bars by splitting the original into 2 equations. And remember, the absolute value bars have to be by themselves. Right? There can be nothing else on that side of the equal sign with them before you split them. Again, like I said, some of them are going to be all set to go. You're just going to be able to split them, do your thing. Sometimes you might have something attached. So you might do one of those first couple situations that we talked about. All right? So, on your notes, we're not going to write all this stuff. You don't have to write all this. You're not writing all this. So for the first equation, we're just going to write down the same equation as the original, just without the absolute value bars. All right? So that's what this means, guys. There's the little thing. So there's the original problem right here. There's your absolute value bars. There's your equal sign. There's a number. We'll split it. We'll write the original problem. The only thing is, it's going to have no absolute value bars. When I do it on the other side, same thing. It'll have no absolute value bars, and whenever it equals, will just be the opposite. If it equals a negative, it'll equal a positive when you set up this equation. If it equals a positive, most times it's going to equal a positive, so you'll set it up equal to a negative. You're going to negate it. Like Mr. Hager says here, you're going to negate it. So if you want to write this, guys, let's say we had, here's my original. Again, if you guys want to write this in, you can, you don't have to. Let's say we had 3a plus 5 equals 18. We're not worried about solving it right now. Is it all set to split? Is it all set to split up? What's the question I have to ask myself to know if I can split it up? Who can tell me? Shannon?
If there are any numbers attached to the...
Yeah. Is there anything attached? No, there's nothing attached. It's all set. I can split it. The first one is just going to be the original problem with no absolute value bars. So Jordan, I want to write I want to write the same exact equation just with no absolute value bars. What would I write here?
3.
Yep.
A plus 5 equals 18.
Exactly. No absolute value bars. I'm all set. Now for the other one, anybody want? It's a little bit more difficult, but not too bad. Anybody think they know what they're going to write for the second equation? Anybody think they know what they're going to write? Or what I'm going to write? They want to take a shot at it. I'm going to write it. Jordy, you think you know?
I don't know.
Not sure? Okay. Anybody think they know? What I'm going to write, here's my first equation. Now I'm splitting it. I'm going to write the same, the original, no absolute value bars, and I'm going to negate what that equation equals, so make it negative. Vanessa?
Is it going to be negative 3a plus 15 or 14?
No. The only thing that needs to be negative is what it equals.
So 3a plus 5 equals negative 18.
That's it. That's it. Right there. I take it, I split it up. The first one's equal exactly to what the first equation is, or the original equation is, just with no absolute value bars. The second time I write it, same exact thing up until after the equal sign. What's after the equal sign has to be made negative. That's the only thing that's changing. Other than that, it's exactly the same. No absolute value bars, make it negative. I think of it, when you get to this point, here's like your jail bars, you're breaking out of jail. All right? You're going to go you want to go one way and just kind of like be yourself. Like, I'm breaking out here, I'm all set. But you also want to make sure you kind of have your alias. You might want to have like that fake mustache or something like that. That's why it becomes negative. So we'll break it out this way, we're ourselves, we're off and running, see you later. Over here, we got to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a fake mustache. So if someone does kind of catch us, we want to make sure that we're all set, that they don't know who we are. All right? And another reason why we want the absolute value bars by themselves, because if you're breaking out of jail, you don't want anybody around. You don't want anybody to know about it. You want to do it by yourself. That's why the absolute value bar is going to be by themselves. All right? So those are the steps to solve absolute value equations. And it's easy here. My first step here, minus 5. Guess what? It's going to be my first step over here, minus 5. So if you know what you're doing over here, you're doing the same thing over here. All the steps are going to be the same. It's just going to be equal to a different number. All right? Let's take a look. Guys, everybody has what they have? Everybody wants it? And then one more thing. We want to make sure we separate them with the word and. We might have to graph some of these. So we want to make sure we separate. On your thing, it says separate two answers with the word or. Cross that out and put and. Cross out the word or and put and. So every absolute value equation that we do has to have two answers. It has to. The majority of the ones that we do will have two answers. So make sure you're separating them with the word and when we get to this point. Not so important when we have to solve them by themselves, but when we have to graph them, you want to make sure you put that word and. Everybody good? So everyone's crossed out the word or and put and. Okay, cool. Backside, examples. So, let's look at, so you guys, you have the number line. The only thing you don't have on the back is the actual examples. So you have to write them in. So for example, 1A, we're going to have the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 3. Right? The absolute value of x plus 1 equals 3.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, right there, right in the bottom. Don't make it super, super huge, Jordy, because we have to do some work under it too. We kind of put it right up on the top here, so you have some room to work. So we get the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 3. So, can we break out? How many people think we can break out? How many people think we're ready to break out of jail? We're all set. We can split the bars. Yes? Trenton, why? No? Not sure? Okay. Shannon?
Because there's nothing attached.
Yeah, there's nothing outside the absolute value. There's no 3 here. There's no plus 2. There's none of that. Absolute value bars are by themselves. I'm good. I can split it. Jordy, you're my expert to write that first equation. What do I write?
X.
Yep.
1 equals 3.
Yep, same exact. Perfect. Derek, what do I write for my second one? Yep, my second equation. Only one thing changes. Not sure? Okay. Jordy?
-3.
Yeah, so give me the whole thing.
Oh, x plus 1 equals -3.
Perfect, Jordy, thank you. X plus 1 equals -3. The only thing we have to do is, obviously for both, we're getting rid of the absolute value. We're writing everything the same up until the equal sign. For the first one, it equals the positive number. For the second one, we want to make it negative. Now we have to solve. And we want to make sure we use the word "and" in between it. So, Ariel, my first step to solve in both will be the same thing, right? What am I going to do first? -1. -1 to what? 3. Oh, -1. I'll do it over here at the same time. I got that one. I got that one. On this side, x equals what? 2. On the other side, can someone tell me what x equals on the other side? -4. I got 2 negatives. Keep the sign. Add the numbers together. Now, on my, let's go connect the dots, right, Mr. Hager?
Just 2 dots.
That's it. Nothing else. Oh, that's easy. All right, guys. For this to graph it, all you do is put dots. You want them open to close, Mr. Hager?
Correct. Fill in.
Filled in. Okay. So let's do. You don't have to write every single number, guys. Just make sure if you're gonna have a negative number, make sure it's on the left. If you're gonna have a positive number, make sure it's on the right. You can just write on the test, guys, and I think on the homework tonight, we give you a number line with numbers on it. On here, it's just blank. All right. So we got -4. Ms. Hager's gonna put in some numbers right now. Like I said, on the test and on your homework, you'll have a number line with numbers actually on it. So you wouldn't have to worry about number like we're doing here. All right, so I'm gonna put a dot. I'm gonna put a dot at 2, and like Jody's is saying right now, put a dot at -4.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I have to do. Nothing else. Just put dots at whatever the 2 answers are, and you're done. That's all you have to do. So if I plugged in either of these numbers inside the absolute value, they would work. If I had absolute value of 2 plus 1 equals 3, absolute value of -4 plus 1 equals 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then -4 plus 1 is -3. equals 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Remember, it's distance from 0. Even though it's at negative 3's over here, it's still 1, 2, 3 spots to get to it. That's why we have two answers. Right? Because you have the one for the negative, one for the positive. All right? Got it? Good? Everybody graphed? All right. 1B. How many people, show me your hands, how many people say, yes, Mr. Roy, we're good, let's break out, let's get out of here, we're all set. Show me. Are we good to break out, yes or no? Nice and high. If you think we're good to break out. Any brave souls that say we're not good to break out? No brave souls out there? Jody, you're saying we can't break out yet? You're just saying because you want the attention? Okay, hi Jody. All right, so we got this. Yeah, we're good to break out. How come? There's nothing out there. There's nothing here, nothing there. We're all set. Split it. Break it out, right? Go one way, be yourself. Like Jody's told us a bunch of times today. Keep it the same. When I go the other way, what am I going to make sure I do? Make it negative. Everything else stays the same up until after the equal sign. That's when you make a change. You going that way? Good. Now, Ashley A. What's my first step in both equations? Subtract 4, I agree. Subtract 4, subtract 4, subtract 4. Guys, if you want to do this whole thing first and do that, then do that one next, you can do that too. I'm just showing you this way so you don't make a mistake with your first step. I'm going to get 2x equals 4. I'm going to get 2x equals, negative 8, negative 4. Someone help me out. Negative 8, negative 4.
Negative 12.
Negative 12. Thank you, Aiden. Keep the sign, add the numbers. Dominic, last step in both. Not yet? One more thing. We're going to do one more thing first. I got 2x equals 4 and 2x equals negative 12. What do I have to do? Not sure? Ashley? Yeah, divide by 2. Divide by 2 here. Divide by 2 here. I'm going to get x equals 2 for that one. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X equals, someone help me out with this one, I'm not sure. I'm not good with my negatives and my positives when I'm dividing. Liam. Negative 6. Sabi, you going to say that?
Yeah.
You're awesome. All right, I'm going to be lazy. I'm going to put a 2 here. I'm going to put a negative 6 here. I don't want to number the whole thing. As long as I know my negatives are on the left, my positives on the right, I'm good. Jordy, my resident expert on graphing. What do I have to do?
What?
What do I have to do here?
3x equals 21.
No.
Oh,
This. How do I graph it? For the last one we just did. Antonio?
not to be confused.
Like a circle,
Where?
like on above the negative 6,
And anywhere else?
above the negative.
That's it. That's all you got to do. All right, Mr. You want to do one?
All right, so first thing Mr. Roy showed us, we're going to look at it and say, is this ready to split? What do you think, Kyle? Yep, how do you know it's ready? Yeah, there's nothing attached. We're going to do one in a second where there is something attached. Okay, but this one, there's nothing, nothing attached. So Kyle, can you tell me one of the equations it's going to split into? 3x equals 21. I like it. And anyone else think they can give me my other equation? Brett? 3x equals negative 21. Okay, this time to solve it, you only have one step. Okay, there's one step we have to do on both of them. Someone else? Yeah, Antonio?
Divide 3 by 21.
Yeah, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And you want to tell me what my first answer is?
It'd be 7.
Good, 7. And I'm going to get x equals...
-7.
Yeah, how did you get -7? What'd you do here?
Negative divided by a positive is a negative.
Yeah, so he divided by 3 again. Negative divided by positive. Negative. Okay, so as far as the solving part, that's it. Okay, now we'll graph it. Okay, any questions on solving that one? All right, so in order to graph it, what do I have to do first? Right now I've got a number line, but it's not ready yet. Ashley? Yeah, just put some numbers on it. Okay, I usually, if 0's in the middle, just put -7 somewhere to the left, +7 somewhere to the right. Okay, I got my number line. Easily. Now, once I have it labeled, what do I do? Yeah, where am I going to put dots? -7. Okay, and where else? 7. And those dots are representing the two answers. -7, +7. Okay, any questions on that one? You good, Jody? All right. All right, so the last two types we're going to look at, and you'll see one, I think one of each on the test, is where we have a number attached right next to it. And then the type where we have a number that's on the same side, but it's not quite next to it. It's separated with a plus sign.
And guys, usually for these ones, when you have to make sure the absolute value is by itself, we're not going to make you graph it.
Yeah, for this one, we'll just
I
solve.
mean, you can, but we're really not going to make you guys do that. If you can graph the basic ones, you know you guys understand it.
All right, so first thing, I'm looking at that. Is it ready to break out? No, right? Somebody's standing around watching them. I like that, Mr. Ryan. Right? They're standing around. You got to get rid of that person who's watching before they can break out. So how do we get rid of that 2? Antonio?
Minus the 2 by the 3y.
Minus. So what operation are you doing between the 2 and that absolute value?
Multiplication.
You're doing multiplication. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. Yeah, that's what we have to do. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. Emma, what happens when I do 2 divided by 2?
It cancels itself.
Yep, that's gone. So the only thing I have left now is what I wanted. Those absolute value bars by themselves. Okay, so absolute value, 3y plus 5 equals, and Sabrina, what's on the other side? 2. Okay, we haven't gotten rid of the absolute values. Dividing by 2 doesn't do that. It just gets rid of what's next to it. Okay, so now the absolute value bars are by themselves. So what are we ready to do now? Ready to what, Emma? I'm sorry, Emily?
Ready to break out.
Yeah, we're ready to now break out. Okay, we can now separate it into 2 different equations. Shannon, can you give me one of my equations?
3y plus 5 equals 2.
3y plus 5 equals 2. That's good. What word should come after it? And. Now I write my other one. Yep, Nina.
3y plus 5 equals -2.
Perfect. 3y plus 5 equals -2. Okay, and now we'll solve it just like we did the other ones. Okay, how about, let's see, how about Vanessa? What's my first step to solve?
Subtract 5 plus 5.
Yep, subtract 5, subtract 5. How about my first step in this other one?
Same thing.
It's going to be the same thing. So if you don't want to do both at once, you don't have to, but it just you're going to do the same thing, so why not just write it down? Okay, and Brett, can you tell me what I'm going to get on this equation on the left?
Good. Equals -3.
Okay, anything else?
And then you bring down the 3y.
Yeah, just bring down that 3y. All right. And I can do the same thing here. I'm going to bring down the 3y, just like Brett said. And I have -2 take away 5. What's that one? -7. Okay. And now the last step to finish both of these equations, same step. Derek, do you know how we're going to get rid of the 3 that's next to the y?
Five,
Yep, divide by what?
3.
Yeah, perfect. You're going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. Okay, do the same thing here. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. If I can reduce it, I'll try to. So how about this one? I get y equals, what's -3 divided by +3? Emily? -1. Okay, so I get that. And okay, I'll write my other answer. Just squeeze it in over here. Can I do -7 divided by 3 and get a nice answer? No. So let's just leave it like that. -7 divided by 3. Those are our two answers. Okay, so any questions on that one? A little different, but once you do that first step, the rest of it's exactly the same as the first couple we did. All right, so you guys ready for one more? I think this is our last problem. Okay, so first thing I always ask myself, am I ready to break out of the bars? Okay, what do you think? Are we ready to break out of the bars here, Brett?
No.
No?
You need to subtract 5.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, before we even do that, which that is what we're going to do, is this any different than the last one? Is the reason why we're not ready to break out different? Yeah, it's a little different. Okay, this time you don't have a number that's right next to the bars. Okay, that's your division. This time you've got a number that's on the same side, but it's a +5. Okay, so as Brett already said, we got to subtract 5 from each side, and that's going to get rid of that 5. Okay, any questions why we're not going to divide by 5? Okay, how would you know to divide by 5? What would that look like?
If it was on the other side,
Yeah, if it was like right up next to it like that.
because then it's multiplication, and then we do the opposite.
Yeah, so if we had something like this, okay, no plus sign, no 5, then you would divide by 5. Okay, but in this case, we've got +5, so we -5. -5, -5. All right, and I get absolute value of x minus 1 equals, okay, what's 2 minus 5? Shannon?
-3.
-3. Now before we go any further with this problem, I want you to look at that carefully. Okay, we have absolute value on the left, right? Absolute value is always what kind of number? Antonio?
Positive.
It's always positive. Okay, so no matter what, anytime you take the absolute value, that's a positive. What kind of number do you have on the right?
Negative.
A negative. All right, so let's try to solve this. Okay, we'll go through it using the steps that we normally use, but let's check our answer at the end and see if it works. Right, because this is the kind of problem that could come up. All right, so let's go through it, but keep in mind, you're saying that something positive, absolute value, is somehow going to equal a negative. Okay, something's going to happen here. All right, so what's my first equation that I would separate it into? Okay, same steps, nothing, don't worry about doing anything different till we check our answer. Yep? X minus 1 equals negative 3. Okay. And what's my other equation? Yeah?
X minus 1 equals negative.
X minus 1 equals
Positive.
positive 3. Remember, you just changed the sign of that number. Okay. Any questions up to that step? Okay, let's try solving each equation and see what happens. Okay, Ashley, how do I solve the first equation on the left? And how am I going to solve the second equation on the right? You do the same thing. Okay, so far everything really seems normal. Doesn't seem like anything weird's happening. Okay, Nini, what's negative 3 plus 1?
Negative 2.
Good, negative 2. And we'll go on the other side. How about Hannah? What's 3 plus 1? 4. Okay, so did anything weird happen? Anybody notice? Did like anything strange happen when I did that? You noticed something strange that happened? What happened?
One of them is a negative and then it's positive.
Okay, so we got one answer that's negative, one answer that's positive, but I think we've had, well, those were both negative. Let's see, do we have one like that? Yeah, this one had a negative and it had a positive. So we've had answers that have one of each before. So that's okay.
It was just the opposite.
What's that?
Opposite.
Oh, which one was negative and positive? Yeah, that's okay. It doesn't really matter which one comes out negative and which one comes out positive. It was just the opposite. So that's okay. So if you just look at that, doesn't that looks fine, doesn't it? There's nothing weird that you see there. Okay? That's what's tricky about this kind of problem. If you don't check your answer, you won't notice anything's wrong. Let's check our answer and then you'll see something's wrong. Let's plug in, let's start with 4. Okay, I'm going to plug that in for x. So absolute value, 4 minus 1 equals negative 3. Okay. What's 4 minus 1? 3. And what's the absolute value of 3? 3. Is that right? Does 3 equal negative 3? No. So 4 doesn't work. All right. Let's check the other one. Let's try negative 2. All right. So plug in negative 2 minus 1. All right. Check this one. What's negative 2 take away 1?
1. No, negative 1.
Negative 3.
Yes. Negative 2. Think you owe someone $2 and then you owe someone 1 more. Now you owe them. That's a
Is
negative
that negative 1 or 5?
3.
It's
It's a negative 2 and a negative 1. Negative
Oh, I
2
thought
take
it was
away 1.
Negative 2 minus 1.
Yeah, negative 2, think on a number line. Negative 2. And if you minus 1, you go to the left 1 spot. Negative 3. Okay, so I got absolute value of negative 3 equals negative 3. What's the absolute value of negative 3? Uh-oh, this is not working out. Negative 3 does not equal negative 3. That answer doesn't work. So what does this mean? There's no solution. Okay? You can't solve this problem. Absolute value, which is always positive, can never equal a negative. Okay? So this one is no solution. Okay, so the way you know that it's a no solution, how can I say it? If you have something like this, absolute value bars, okay, and you've got stuff inside the absolute value bars, and that's equal to a negative. Anytime you've got something like this, absolute value of stuff equals negative, no solution. Okay? So if you have this, answer is no solution.
So basically, if the absolute value equals a negative, there's no solution.
Okay, any question on that? All right, let me show you something kind of neat on the calculator. Okay, this part, just watch me do this. Okay, I'm going to type in our very first problem. Absolute value of x plus 1. Okay, and I want to show you a picture of that. Okay, I'm going to show you, let's see, math, number, absolute value of x plus 1. What shape is it? Yeah, it's like a V shape, right? Now I don't know if you can see it, but it crosses the x-axis in two spots. Here and here. Can anybody see what number this is at? Yeah, this is at 2. How about this one? Negative 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the two answers we got to this problem? 2 and negative 4. So one way you can look at it is if you look at this V shape, wherever it crosses the x-axis, those are the two answers. So what do you think that would mean about the one we just did? It had no solution. So when I draw this, what is it going to look like? When I draw that V shape, where do you think it would cross the x-axis?
Yeah.
Well, did we get an answer of 0?
No.
No, it's not going to cross at 0. Brett? It's not. Okay. What's going to happen when I draw this one? What was it? Absolute value x minus 1. And it's 3. Watch what it looks like. So it's a V shape, never touches the x-axis. Okay? That's why there's no solution. Okay? So sometimes we'll look at graphs. Okay, we are going to do this later in the year. I think we're going to look at the graphs of these absolute values. But for today, I just wanted you to see that V shape.
And guys, you're still going to have homework too, so I want to put everything away.
Yeah.
Okay, so your homework tonight is going to be in 1.4. It's a worksheet. Okay, I'll try to make sure I put that on the internet. Test on Friday. Okay, on my Google Classroom site, there's going to be a bonus again this week. Okay, it's going to be just like we did last week. Okay, there'll be a spot on the review sheet. Okay, and don't forget, progress reports close on Friday.